The Charlotte Hornets have been one of, if not the worst and most dysfunctional franchise in the NBA for over decades, and certainly been one of the worst teams in the NBA for the last 3 years. Ever since they drafted their franchise player in LaMelo Ball as the third overall pick in the 2020 draft, they truly haven't gone anywhere since then. But the moves they made in this year's offseason has sparked some light with this struggling team. The last time they actually had traction as far as them being an up and coming team is during LaMelo Ball's rookie year. He was a recipient of the Rookie of the Year by averaging 16 points while grabbing 6 rebounds and 6 assists, and shot 43% from the field, 35% from 3, and 76% from the charity strike. And by the way, this is over Anthony Edwards, who's right now a top 10 player in this league. He has exceeded expectations and proven to everybody that he is not just an internet star. He has proven that he can hoop in the big leagues and shown the potential to be a franchise level superstar player for this shitty franchise. The Hornets that year were actually one of the better teams in the weak Eastern Conference in the 21 season. During the month of March, they were above 500 with a 20-18 record, which raised them above Miami and Atlanta, and they had a very solid roster around LaMelo Ball. You have Terry Rozier, who was a really good two-way player who can space the floor, can give you 20 points per night with good efficiency, and can create his own shot. And actually had a breakout season since getting traded to the Hornets for Kemba Walker. You also had Gordon Hayward, who was a veteran presence, a key spacer and scorer on this roster, and also a good help defender as well. PJ Washington, who is a solid scorer and decent defender at this point of his career. You also had Malik Monk and Mason Plumlee, who was a solid role-playing center, and also Miles Bridges off the bench. The Hornets had an above-average offense during the month of March, but around the same time, LaMelo Ball will be sidelined due to injury. This led the Hornets from being in the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference all the way down to a play-in spot as the 10th seed. Unfortunately, the Hornets lost in the play-in against the Pacers, but that didn't matter because they jumped 10 wins compared to the 2020 season and proved why they will be in playoff contentions for many years to come. But the following year, it just did not work out for the Hornets in 2022, despite them having an above 500 record overall. LaMelo Ball and James Borrego did not have the best relationship as time moved forward, and Borrego really got on him as far as his turnover issues and defense, and Melo being the son of LeVar Ball. You know it's going to be rough for the head coach, not just that year, but the previous year, where LeVar criticized Borrego for not starting LaMelo early on. Obviously, it continued over the 22 season where Borrego have benched Melo multiple times, especially going into the 4th quarter because of the concerns he has with Melo's inability to take care of the ball, as well as his lackadaisical defense during key tie 4th quarter moments. Even though there was some truth to Melo's concern that Borrego pointed out, but him not being on the floor has really held the team back because clearly Melo being on the court in the 4th quarter gives the Hornets the best chance to win, and it has costed them a couple of games because of that. Not just that, but Borrego's philosophy did not mess well with Melo's game. Despite LaMelo Ball making the All-Star game in just his 2nd season in the league with averages of 20 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists on 43, 38, and 87 shooting splits, the Hornets had one of the worst defenses in the league, bottom 3 I might add, and got blown out by the Hawks in the play-in. The front office decided it was better for Borrego to be let go despite the Hornets making the back-to-back play-in tourneys under him and the development of Miles Bridges and the young roster. Still, they had a horror defense, and Borrego did not maximize the defensive efforts of this team and was holding back LaMelo Ball's development to a certain extent. They brought back Steve Clifford, who led the Hornets to the playoffs back in 2016, but wasn't able to capture this magic like he did in his first stint there. Let me tell you guys that the Hornets will continue to suck in the next 2 years under him. LaMelo Ball missed 46 games with an ankle injury and kept re-injuring it until he fractured it in February. That will make him miss the remainder of the season. Gordon Hayward, who signed a 4-year, $120 million deal back in 2019, by the way, will miss 32 games with shoulder and hamstring injuries. Cody Martin will only play 7 games this season. That, along with a horrid offense, horrid defense, no spacing on the floor, let alone no identity to the team. With that paired alongside Miles Bridges, who had a breakout year in 2022, dealt with severe domestic issues that was suspended for the whole 23 season. It was truly a disastrous season for the Hornets, and they will miss the playoffs once again. In the very next year, it was the same thing. The Hornets had multiple players who faced trouble off the court, as James Bouknight, who was the 11th overall pick in the 21 draft, who was viewed to be a sharpshooting scorer and second guy to pair alongside Melo had a DOI charge back in 22 and pled guilty to this violation. He was on probation. Knowing the bust that he was in the last 3 years there, the Hornets decided to waive him on February of the 24 season. It was never signed to a team since then, making him one of the biggest busts in recent memory, actually. Montrezl Harrell had legal issues with Zaza and drug trafficking and even was waived shortly after. Hell, LaMelo Ball had off-the-court relationship drama. The Hornets was just a mess, and the hype for this team completely died down, and it got to the point that Michael Jordan had to sell the franchise back in 23 because of the lack of success on this franchise during his 10-year tenure as the majority owner. And of course, the off-the-court issues that multiple players had played a role to MJ's departure. With this horrid season in 24, the Hornets cleaned house. They fired Steve Clifford. They got rid of Mitch Kupchak and brought in Jeff Peterson as new GM. In his first move, he hired Charles Lee, making him LaMelo Ball's third head coach. He worked under Greg Popovich. Mike Budenholzer in Milwaukee was the top assistant to the championship-winning Boston team 2 seasons ago. And yes, in his first year, they were arguably the worst team in the league. Melo had another injury-riddled year. Brandon Miller had an injury-riddled year, only played 17 games last season. Another horrid year, but this was an identity year for the Hornets, bringing in that defensive-like culture to the team. They have something to look forward to in the future, especially what they have done this offseason. In this year's draft, they selected Antetokounmpo with the 4th overall pick, a 6'7" wing who is the best shooter in this draft, who can provide spacing and fits seamlessly with Melo and Brandon Miller. They also drafted another sharpshooter in Liam McNeely with their 29th overall pick, and Knepel's teammate Zion James with the 33rd pick in the second round, who is a steal, by the way, and has the potential to be a Lou Dort type of player who can bring all on-ball defense and can be a good spot-up shooter and secondary playmaker for this roster, and also fits well with the culture. And last but not least, Ryan Kalkbrenner, who is projected to be a shot-blocking, low-post defender at 7'1", 270-pound frame, and can be a pick-and-pop threat, a guy the Hornets desperately need. They also traded for Colin Sexton in exchange for Jusuf Nurkic, who is an efficient 18 points per game scorer who can create his own shots, space the floor, and most importantly, be a 6-man guy off the bench. They also brought back Mason Plumlee for more veteran presence. They also brought Pat Connaughton, who is a 3 and energy type guy who will give you veteran presence and toughness to the roster. You still have Brandon Miller, who has the potential to be a star level player, and he has shown that multiple times last season. A prolific scorer who can score in a multitude of ways, can shoot the lights out, and shown defensive versatility as well. You still have Miles Bridges, who is one of the more underrated power forwards in the game. This is a guy who has been a solid 20 points per game guy who can space the floor decently and plays good defense. You have another 3-and-D guy in Grant Williams. You also have Trey Mann off the bench, who is another 40% three-point shooter. The Hornets have a solid roster around LaMelo Ball, and given the situation that he was in for the past couple of years, when he was dealt with lack of shooters as well as lack of other scoring threats that can take the load off of him, this time he actually has guys that fits alongside him. He has multiple shooters that can help him get easier looks as well as him creating looks for them. He also has defenders that can help with his deficiencies on defense. The only true concern with him is his injury history and turnovers, as well as him playing too much hero ball. This is a guy who missed 100 plus games in the last 3 seasons and was turnover prone too. So if he manages to play over 60 games and learn how to stop gassing up these over the top passes and shots that he usually attempts last season, then he will for sure be selected. Another All-Star appearance. He'll even be nodded for first ever All-NBA selection. With this revamped roster he has around him, I see him average at least 24 per game, but it will be the most efficient season of his career, shooting 47 to 48% from the field and around 38% from 3, and established himself as one of the best passers in the NBA, having a career high in like 10 or more assists per game. He can really put himself in the conversation as among the top 10, hell, even a top 5 point guard in the NBA. I won't be surprised if he plays at a superstar level, to be honest, given the talent and fit he has around him. I also see Brandon Miller take the leap towards becoming one of the better two-way players in the league, potentially be a first-time All-Star this coming year. Don't forget that Miller was the second overall pick in the potential Generation 23 draft class. This guy was projected to be a Paul George type of guy who is an extremely skilled, oversized, athletic wing who can guard multiple positions despite being 6'9" and have a 7-foot wingspan. And so far, there are some similarities. Of course, there are weaknesses in his game as far as his handle, which is why he had a pretty high turnover percentage in his limited games played and does not have a consistent mid-range game yet. Not that great of a finisher and being a little weak in his body as far as defending bigger guys in the NBA. But that happened with Tatum and PG earlier in their career, so I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue with Miller. I think he'll progress as well as them, especially having a great playmaker in LaMelo Ball, along with the spacing that he has around him this coming 26 season. And then we move to Miles Bridges, and he will also have a more efficient season as the third option on the team. Continental will have a solid rookie here, and they have the firepower on the bench with Colin Sexton leading the way as a 6th Man of the Year candidate. They also have Spencer Dinwiddie and Trey Mann in the rotation, Grant Williams, Liam McNeely, Pat Connaughton. They have a pretty deep roster if I'm being honest, and I like Charles Lee as the team's head coach. I think he resonates with this roster, particularly LaMelo Ball's game as far as their playstyle goes and the defensive mind he has. Adding the championship experience he had with multiple franchises, I do think he could be the best coach that the Hornets possibly ever had. I think that this guy is here to stay. But anyways, the Hornets have been turning things around as far as the management and the roster goes. They brought in the right coach. They brought in more guys that fits with LaMelo Ball's play style. And with the right amount of depth, they have improved offensively and defensively. And if everyone is healthy, I do see this team be competitive in the Eastern Conference. I think they can surprise everyone and battle for an 8th, hell, even a 7th seed in the East at best. For example, Detroit went from having one of the worst seasons in franchise history 2 seasons ago to being the 6th seed in the East just by replacing coaches. Now in Charlotte, they have the right coach plus more pieces. They can really make a name for themselves and should not be scoffed at. And that's the video. Let me know about your thoughts on the Hornets. Can they be a playoff team in the East? Let me know, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications for new future videos. And that is all. Stay litty. This is the A-Man Show. Sign out.